What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a Chicago Bulls and New York Knicks game reaction, our first of two games against the Knicks in back-to-back, games. Not a back-to-back, but like we versed them again in New York next time around. And we ended up winning and continuing our undefeated streak as we now sit 5-0. This is the first time the Bulls went 5-0 since their 72-10 season 29 years ago. Would you like to know a fun fact? 29 years ago, I was not alive. I'm 26 years old, ladies and gentlemen, so technically I have never seen the Chicago Bulls go 5-0 in their first 5 games. That is astonishing. We've had some great teams, even after the MJ era, and none of them went 5-0. That's wow. Look, the more you know, ladies and gentlemen. But look, I want to give a tremendous round of applause to the Chicago Bulls team for just how much they continue to fight back. Because was this the most perfect game you'll ever see from them? Probably not. I mean, we had a great first half. I really liked the first half. We outscored them 35-27 and 37-26. So we were crushing it in the first half. But it wasn't perfect. We'll talk a little bit about it and more in this video. But before we get any further, if you liked the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new. And let me know what you guys think about the Chicago Bulls, their game today, and your player of the game as we win this one 135-125. Now, once again, I said this game was not perfect. The reason why this game wasn't perfect is just the way New York fought back in the third quarter. The third quarter was very iffy as they outscore us 38-28, and you just felt things were getting a little bit tingly there, you know? There's a little bit of an unsure situation. And the reason why that's the case is because of all the games that we have lost like this in the past. Games like the Golden State Warriors, I will never forget. The last 2 years that we faced them, we had a 20-plus point lead in those games, and we blew it twice. I will never forget those games. I will never forget the pain that those games caused me. So when you think of the New York Knicks, you're winning by 20-plus points, and you're feeling like you're just dominating the game. And to be fair, the Knicks never had the lead outside of the first quarter. That is a very big thing to mention. So even though they came crawling back, they came fighting back as a good team does, the Bulls took care of business and ensured that we picked up a victory. And I talked about how defense would be the factor here, how defense will be the play. Well, when you're scoring 35 and 37 points respectively in a quarter, in the half, I think you have to give a lot of credit to the offense for the Chicago Bulls. There were a lot of players that really stepped up to the mark and just had not only amazing games, but ridiculously efficient games. Once again, you've got to give a shout out to the bench coming in and just doing unbelievable work for the Chicago Bulls. And to be honest, without this bench, and I mean everybody, I mean guys from Patrick Williams, Kevin Huerter, Ayo Dosunmu, even guys like Jalen Smith, Julian Phillips. He played 6 minutes and he got no stats on the board. I'm even going to throw him in there. I truly feel like if there were certain players on that bench that just didn't play or wasn't even a Chicago Bull, you know, there's talks that Ayo could potentially not be a Chicago Bull or whatnot, you know, from earlier on in the regular in the offseason and everything in between. I feel like if one person out of that bench, maybe except for Julian Phillips, didn't play, we would lose. That's how important this bench has been. That's how important this bench needs to be. Because we don't have that number one superstar. We just don't. But when you have a bench this stacked, it's going to help you win. And that's exactly what they did. So let's bring individual stats into the play, ladies and gentlemen. So obviously, we're going to leave Isaac Okoro out of this with 3 points, but defensively, he was all right. He was solid. Matas Buzelis with 13 points and 1 assist on the night. Again, I feel like this is the type of team when one person has it going, the other players are going to be willing to sacrifice for them. So Matas Buzelis didn't need the 27 points he had last game. He didn't need the 20 points per game that he's probably been averaging. I think he's averaging around 17, 18. I'm not sure. Something along those lines. Maybe not because of the Magic game. But you know, we don't need that amount of points from Matas Buzelis because other guys filled in the load. What he did was simple. He played defense, and he did very well at that. There were a couple of good defensive plays there, and he scored when his time was needed to score. So he didn't do anything out of the ordinary. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he played a very good team game. A couple of things I'd like to say. I feel like rebounding-wise, we have a lot of great rebounders on this team. And we have a lot of players that are willing to crash the boards. I want Matas Buzelis to be more involved in that, especially at the power forward position. Thankfully, we've got guys like a Josh Giddey. And thankfully, we've got guys like a Trey Jones at guard. And we've even got Vucevic, who's just a double-double machine these days. We've got other guys like Jalen Smith, who had 9 rebounds. Like, we have rebounders on this team. And I'm not saying Matas Buzelis doesn't contribute at all in that area. He has some good box outs, and he does help. But I would like to see him crash the boards a little bit more because I think 0 rebounds. He's had a couple of those games where we had no rebounds, but that's just nitpicking on what was a terrific performance and overall an undefeated team play. So you got to love to see it. Vucevic, 26 points, 2 assists, 7 rebounds. Guy was dominant. He was unbelievably dominant. You know, when you're facing the New York Knicks, you're worried for a couple of reasons. You're worried because A, the massive lineup that they have. You know, sometimes they play Mitchell Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns. They also have a sequence in this game where they went completely really small, trying to almost match up with us because we weren't exactly playing the biggest lineups out there either. So it felt like we had control of the game and they tried to match us tooth and nail with that. But the big lineup is a worry. Guys like Mitchell Robinson or guys like Karl Anthony Towns, you know, playing both of them together is a massive concern. But Vucevic held his own and then some. I mean, Karl Anthony Towns did not have a great game. And we could all say that. Mitchell Robinson only had his debut game today. So Vucevic, as the player that has the experience, has a little bit more game time under his belt, and has just played so well this season, just absolutely took that massive lineup away from the New York Knicks. And again, it's just such a big positive to see him playing this way. He is playing some of the best defensive basketball as well in his entire career. At what, 34 years old, however old he is? Fair play to the guy. Fighting for his contract, maybe fighting for the roster spot next season. I don't know. But unbelievable for performance from Nikola Vucevic. Easily in contention for player of the game. Trey Jones, bit of a questionable one here. 8 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds. Stats look okay. But he didn't make a shot. He literally wasn't 8 free throws. I think he shot 8 free throws today. I think he was just 8 from 8 from the line, which is very weird. Three assists ain't bad. 4 rebounds as a guard, especially the smallest guard on the team, is exceptional work, I would say. Look, he played his role. No steals today either. It was just one of those games. And again, Trey Jones has had a terrific start to the season. Unbelievable start. I'm so proud with how he's been playing. He's made me a true believer of his game. To see one bad performance will not be the end of the world for me. To see a performance where maybe he could have made more shots. I think he only took 4 shots in the game. Or he could get a steal every now and then. Like, again, it's, in my opinion, this is the minority type of game. And 8 points, 3 assists is still not anything bad whatsoever for a guy that is eventually going to be a bench player on this team. So massive respect overall for Trey Jones, but I do think he could do a little bit better than what we saw today. Maybe we'll see it in that second game against the Knicks. And again, that's the beautiful thing about this. I'm just going to keep talking. I don't care how long this video is. The beautiful thing about maybe a Trey Jones not having a great game today is because this team is going to produce in so many different ways. And we have so many players that are willing to score, willing to step up, willing to fight for the team, that it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have a bad game next time around. In fact, somebody else might have to have that bad game, and then Trey Jones is going to step up to the plate and be the next man up. So it makes us unpredictable. When we talk about how the Knicks, it's going to be hard to beat the Knicks twice, and in reverse as well, it's going to be hard for the Knicks to beat us twice. It's because you study the game plan. You study the way that we like to play. We study the way they like to play. It's very difficult. It's like a playoff series. It's very hard to get rid of a team and sweep them. It's possible, but it's hard to do. And that's why the next game against the Knicks, it will be very difficult to beat them. But there's faith there. But what makes it so unpredictable is that a guy like Trey Jones, who had a bad game this time around, could be our best player the next game. Josh Giddey, who had an unbelievably unfathomable night, could end up being a 14-point scorer in the next game, and somebody else will step up to the plate. Matas Buzelis, who had 13 points, could drop 30 in the next game. Vucevic, who had 26 points and 7 rebounds, could drop down to 18 points, but have 11 rebounds. We make differences in so many different ways. That's what makes it so hard to beat. It's so hard to beat a team that has multiple ways to score and multiple players that can enter the double figures. So I'm not worried about Trey Jones, and I'm not worried about this team in general at this point in time. Josh Giddey was unbelievable. Near triple-double, 32 points as well, by the way. 9 assists, 10 rebounds. I don't think he had a turnover as well. So if you're talking about player of the games, if that is not a player of the game stat line, I don't know what is. That's a not a Hall of Fame. That's an all-star level stat line right there from a player that could potentially be making it into the all-star game. So you gotta love that, man. He stepped up to the plate. He stepped up to the plate. And what I loved about Josh Giddey as well, we don't always see it with him, but today he used his size. He used his size so much. He had guys like Jordan Clarkson guarding him. He had guys like Jalen Brunson guarding him. He had guys like McBride guarding him. No disrespect to these players. Again, the Knicks are a good defensive team, and they have been for years now. But the beautiful side about Josh Giddey is that those guys are nowhere near that height range. So he just took advantage of it. How many times did you see him do like a random spin move to get to the free throw line and under and take floaters? It happened almost every time. And then the 3-point shot was falling today as well. I loved it. I loved every bit of it. Easily my player of the game. Patrick Williams with 9 points and 3 assists. Massive respect to Patrick Williams. Just doing a little bit of everything. Defensively, he's been very superb in the way that he's been playing. And then offensively, he's giving you 3-point shots. He's giving you a little bit of physicality. He's just doing what you expect him to do in the role that he is playing. And again, I've enjoyed his performances, and I think he's just done a tremendous job this season. And that's hard to say because Patrick Williams is notoriously hated by Bulls fans. But most of them now are starting to come around in this new role. Once again, we don't expect superstardom anymore. We all can agree that superstardom is probably not in the future of Patrick Williams. But playing elite 3-and-D offense and defense is absolutely within his capabilities. And I think he's showing it with the way that he has been playing. And then, Ayo. Oh my goodness. Ayo. 22 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds. You know what I like about Ayo? I saw Stacey King and maybe it was Casey Johnson actually that said this. It was on the broadcast somewhere. Ayo's role is to make sure that when he comes into the game, there is no drop-off from the starters to the bench. That is what he is expected to do each and every single night. He plays like he's a starter, and that is his role. Now, let me ask you a question. Did you see a drop-off from the bench to the starters? I'm throwing it out there. I can tell you the answer, but I think you know the answer because I'm talking about it. Not only that, not only was there not a drop-off, there was a step up. We scored more of our points when the bench was on. When the bench and the starters kind of had a little bit of a balance there. It was some of our bench players and some of our starters. That's when we scored the most. Our starters didn't necessarily score the most at the beginning. The bench made the difference, and then the starters picked up from that. It's a luxury to have. The secret weapon is not a secret anymore. And teams really need to be fearful of it. And then we're talking about guys like Kevin Huerter with 12 points and 6 rebounds, playing really good defense as well, made some threes, absolutely love it. Jalen Smith, if you could get a 10-point and 9-rebound game from Jalen Smith off the bench, that's the best you could ask for. As our bench player, as our backup center, and as a player that's in he's kind of third option, realistically, with Zach Collins coming back at some point. Getting that stat line is fantastic. And he played very solid as well. Our bench, once again, makes us proud. And we should be very, very happy with that. We did it in the NBA Cup as well. The importance of the NBA Cup for the Bulls could be a vital one. You know, you want to win any tournament you're in. An in-season tournament, a playoff tournament. When you're in college, you want to win the college tournaments. You want to win in basketball. It's as simple as that. So we have a chance to win. I was fearful of the Knicks because they are the best team in our conference, in our stage. And we won that game. And that was our first one. You know, if you're asking me, would I rather have this game against the Knicks or the next game against the Knicks? I'd rather win the game in the NBA Cup. And we did so. We did so very, very well. Now, that's not to say we should take our foot off the gas for the next game. But I think we took the more important game. And we'll see what happens with the Knicks. It'll be hard to beat them twice. They're a great team, great side, probably the best team in the East, and I fully believe that. I'm convinced they'll find a way back, and I find it hard to believe that they're going to lose 4 games in a row or 3 games in a row, whatever it is. So time will tell. But with the way that this team has been playing, the defensive intensity, the fights, the game management, it is hard to not have faith in this team. This is the most important win of the season. Every other win was against skeptical teams that are fighting for the playoffs, and teams, to be fair, many people believe are going to be playoff teams. The Hawks, many people believe it. The Pistons, many people believe it. The Orlando Magic, many people believe these teams are going to be in fighting for the playoffs, fighting for, top spots. And heck, if the Kings were in the Eastern Conference, they'd be in that conversation too. The Kings are out west. That's why no one's talking about that victory. But if the Kings were in the Eastern Conference, they'd be fighting for the playoffs. I fully believe that. The West is just too stacked. So, yeah, that's kind of where I see that our situation, and we beat those teams. But the Knicks was the guarantee. The Knicks is almost 100% they are going to make it. And we beat them this time around. That is a win you cannot take away from us. We may end up being a playing tournament team by the end of it. A game like that and a start like this is something you cannot take away from us. It brings a glimmer of hope. It brings faith into what's to come. And let's see how things go. My player of the game is Josh Giddey. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. God bless. Thank you, Chicago. Take care. And peace.